Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm Abby Small, and today we have another deck discussion. And actually, this deck was kind of inspired by EpicBeowulf. So EpicBeowulf had posted a deck on Discord that was a pool deck for Maria Hill, but I hadn't yet built a pool deck, so I didn't want to look at his deck. So I had sent him a message saying, "Oh, I want to see your deck, but I want to wait till I build my own." So what I did was, once I was ready to build this deck, so he built his like a couple of weeks ago, and after I built my deck, play tested it for about halfway through my villains. Then I went ahead and checked his deck out, and it turned out we actually had similar thoughts about our builds, though our build ended up being a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do a deck discussion on my deck and then contrast it with his so you can see two different builds with some of the same thoughts involved in them, and then be able to use that to perhaps make your own deck that's similar, give you ideas for your own decks, or perhaps to try one or the other of these decks out. So like I said, I'll share that later. As usual, I have timestamps so you can go find that, if you want to skip ahead to look for it. All right, so let's go ahead and start with my deck then. So first of all, it's called S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Sky Keeps on Turning. If any of you are familiar with Journey, then you might know where that title comes from, the band Journey, that is. And it has 41 cards in it. I'll go ahead and tell you this right now. EpicBeowulf's deck has 40 cards in it. And the link is actually also in my deck description if you end up wanting to go there, but I'll put the links to both decks in my description of this video as well. All right, so here's the main drive in this deck is that I wanted to take advantage of these great resource cards from Pool: Self-Confidence, Self-Control, and Self-Preservation. And all three of those cards, have the ability to, first of all, double the number of resources this card generates, right? Because normally its resource is just one. In this case, physical and self-control is mental and self-preservation is energy. But it doubles the number of resources this card generates if your identity has sustained less than 5 damage, but triples the resources instead if you've sustained no damage. So my goal was to get the most out of these cards in order to really make it a lot easier to be able to play those big supports, those, for Maria Hill, right? Let's go ahead and look at her abilities real quickly and see, what her advantage is. It really comes from her alter ego side. So we'll start with that. So if we look at that, she has the shield and spy traits. Also, that's the same on her hero side. Recovery of 3, 9 hit points, a hand size of 6. You may include a maximum number of copies of 3 shield supports in your deck from aspects other than your chosen aspect. And she has this action: exhaust Maria Hill, search your deck for a shield support and add it to your hand. So the main ones that I was really concerned about, though, there were others too. So I'm going to cover all the shield supports right now. So the big ones that cost 6 are the Pericles, the Iliad, which comes in Maria Hill's deck, and the Bellerophon. And so each of those costs 6, right? The Bellerophon, you exhaust the Bellerophon, remove 1 missile counter from it, choose a player, deal 3 damage to the villain, and each minion engage with that player, discarding all tough status cards from those enemies first. And one thing you'll notice on all of these cards is they are actions. They are not hero actions. So you can do it on either the alter ego side or the hero side. The Iliad has 3 options. We've discussed another deck by her before, so you can read those if you want to read them and remind yourself what those effects are. And the Pericles is the one where you can exhaust the Pericles, remove 1 supply counter from it, give your hero or villain a status card of your choice, give an ally or minion a status card of your choice. Notice that this one comes with 2 uses. The other 2, when you play them, have 3 use counters that are going to be put on them. And then in addition to that, we also have Sky Destroyer. After you play a shield card, exhaust Sky Destroyer, deal 2 damage to an enemy. A lot of games I got that out. Some games I didn't, but most games I did. And in my case, I also have 3 copies of Med Team. So the Med Team are the ones that, comes with 3 medical counters, and you exhaust, remove a medical counter, heal 2 damage from a friendly character. Note that this is also an action, right? And that's the same. Shield Sky Destroyer is a response, right? So all of those work, including Helicarrier 2 is another shield card. So all of those work when you are on Alter Ego or on the other side there. And then she also comes with her support staff too, right? So we have a whole bunch of these cards, but in order to meet her needs, right, she's allowed to include the maximum number of 3 shield supports from aspects other than your chosen aspect, right? So those are the 3 med teams. You have to include all 3. The Bellerophon is a second one, and the Pericles is the other. Right. So part of my personal goal was to make sure that the vast majority of the time these were going to be worth 3, right? I wanted to be able to use, if I had self-confidence, self-control, or self-preservation in hand. Notice I also have energy, genius, and strength as well. So those are all double resources, and special funding. So which comes within her deck. So that's 2 more resources. And so that's 8 resources altogether, which is definitely more than I would typically include in most of my decks. And so there were some things I did in order to kind of make up for that as well. So you'll see that in a little bit. But one of the great things about including 8 resources is that if you can go down to Alter Ego side, then no matter what, you don't have a dead hand, right? So that's one of the great things, if you can go to Alter Ego side, is you don't have a dead hand with having all those resource cards, because Maria Hill can go in and, use her action on Alter Ego and search your deck, and, if you exhaust her, and shield support and add it to your hand. So you have a relatively easy ability not to have a dead hand, but it's not always safe to go down to Alter Ego side. So that possibility is still there. And so that's why I included these 3 mulligans in my deck, right? So you cannot play this card if you've already played another card. And it has an action, discard your hand, draw a new hand. So that's what that's meant to be here, is for a safeguard. And normally if I have mulligan in my deck, I would also want to have some kind of resource sink. I have none of those in this deck. So this is the first deck I've ever built that has no resource sinks for mulligan. It's just meant to be a safeguard. That's all mulligan is in this deck. And even though it pushed me up to 41 cards, I decided to include all 3 because I really wanted that safeguard. So it's meant to be insurance for that. Right. In addition, and I want to get to Maria Hill's hero ability as well, but as long as I'm mentioning insurance, that's also why I included Get in Front of Me in this deck. So it is a hero interrupt. When a treachery card is revealed from the encounter deck, cancel its revealed effect. The villain attacks you instead. If an ally or another hero defends this attack, draw 1 card. So that's meant to be insurance when it's the villain's turn. And the same goes for Not My Responsibility, which is meant to be a way to make sure that you can actually go to Alter Ego side so that we can use Maria Hill's Alter Ego ability and grab one of the supports here. And so Not My Responsibility is an interrupt. When any amount of threat would be placed on a scheme, you or your ally take it as damage instead. Note that it's 0 cost. Get in Front of Me, by the way, has 1 cost, and the mulligans have 3 cost. But Not My Responsibility notice it's a straight interrupt. It is not a hero interrupt, so you can use it when you're on Alter Ego side. That works great for that. And that's also why I include Professor X, by the way, was to be able to confuse the villain, to be able to go to Alter Ego side. But that's meant to, normally you only really need that early game, because once you have the Pericles out, you can go ahead and confuse the villain regularly with the Pericles, as long as you're able to keep up your supply of counters on it. Right. And I'm not going to discuss what keeps up those counters, right? Nick Fury helps with that, and you have some other cards within their in the supports to help with that, as well as the S.H.I.E.L.D. director here. Well, I guess I am discussing it. Okay. But the main thing to me then is, if I'm going to be able to get all 3 of these, Well, Maria Hill is going to probably sustain some damage here and there. So I wanted to make sure I had healing. So healing factor was also included in this deck. And then that's also why I chose to include the 3 med teams. Plus, the med teams would have the added benefit of being able to heal certain allies that are great to keep in the game the whole time once they get out there, right? So the highest priority being Nick Fury, her identity specific ally has that response after Nick Fury uses a basic power, place 1 all-purpose counter on a shield support. So once I get Nick Fury out, I want Nick Fury to stay in the game the rest of the game. And then if I happen to get Agent 13 out, that's another one, right? Hazardous response after Agent 13 attacks or thwarts, choose a shield support, ready that support. So Agent 13 is another card that I love to have staying out permanently once they come out. But the other ones, I could all feel free to, if I needed to, I could use them to defend with. Notice I also include Mockingbird. Again, early game can help with stunning the villain. All right. So that's most of it here. So why don't I go ahead and get into the results of the deck? So I played against the 4 villains. We had Black Widow, Claw, which I use my usual expert house rule. Again, you can go, I'll scroll down to the bottom, and you could always read it's reason number 1 here, the expert house rule. And then I do want to mention one other thing that's really important. So this pool deck disclaimer. So I no longer use the Dread Pool and counter set when I play test pool decks. And the main reason why is because it's so inconsistent whether it comes out, and it changes the game completely. Now, the truth is with Maria Hill, if you have the Bellerophon out, then you can regularly get rid of Deadpool every single turn, Dreadpool every single turn, excuse me. But in general, for most heroes, what I found is that, like, even especially when I did 2 deck comparisons between, say, my deck and another deck, and I would play test both decks, it was a completely different experience from one deck to the other, just based on whether or not that encounter set ended up, firing off and getting the Dreadpool into play. And I was tired of that inconsistency and just the total, in my opinion, unfairness of it. So I do have my reasons why written up here if you wanted to read them, but those are the basic reasons why. I didn't like the inconsistency from one hero to the next, especially in 2 deck comparisons, but even just one hero to the next when I was using pool decks. And I frankly just think it's unfair. And I've played over 100 games with it. I've put in my time, and I'm just not going to use it anymore. Right? Everybody else is welcome to use it, right? It's part of the rules, but that's my own personal house rule on it. I'm not going to use it anymore. I just feel like it's unfair. I don't see any super advantage to running a pool deck over other decks when there are so many other card choices you have in the other aspects. So I want to feel like I'm putting together real decks and not have to worry about this Dreadpool thing. So that's it for my little disclaimer on Dreadpool. That with pool decks, I'm no longer going to use it. Like I said, I've done it over 100 times, and I just don't feel like using it anymore. Okay, so with that in mind, let me see if that's everything that I wanted to cover. Oh, actually, I did want to mention something. So if you are happening to build your own deck, there are a lot of times, most decks, I don't include Mulligan. But in this one, I wanted to because of that extra insurance. And not a single game, right? I played 9 games altogether. Oh, and I finish talking about this? I had Claw, Black Widow, and Sabanur, which is Apocalypse and Magneto. And I won 8 of the 9 games that I played. I lost 1 game to Expert Magneto, which was a real tough battle. I felt like it was really challenging draw. Magneto was at his best, and I was really holding him off, but I just kept getting bad luck after bad luck and couldn't stop him. And then the next game in Expert totally dominated him, right? So this deck worked exactly what it was supposed to the second time. Okay. Now, that being said, let me go to this Mulligan. I actually never used Mulligan a single time, right? I never had a dead hand, and that was my only real reason to ever use Mulligan. I mean, there could be a reason why I would want to get a whole new hand if I knew I had some great cards coming up. But frankly, every time I pulled a Mulligan into my hand, or I had a mulligan in my hand, there was like I already had what I needed in my hand, like not a single time in 9 games. So with that being said, a person could consider mulligan to be a waste, and you might want to replace mulligan, these 3 mulligans, with just 2 other cards, and then you have 40 cards. So 2 other cards that you think might be better, maybe a couple of allies. I personally actually still really liked having mulligan in there for that insurance, even though it never happened. It's just like when I include Lockjaw in some of my decks. I'll play a whole bunch of games with Lockjaw, where Lockjaw is meant to be insurance for certain heroes and certain decks, just in case I can't play anything, and I'll play 8 or 9 games and end up playing Lockjaw in only maybe a couple of those games. And I felt like this was similar to that, where I thought it was totally worth it. That just in case I had that situation where maybe I pulled a whole bunch of resource cards, wasn't able to go down to Alter Ego and get something useful, or it wasn't a good decision to make, then I wanted that option. If I happen to have mulligan in my hand, and that's why I included 3 copies, then I had that insurance. Never used it in this case, but I still appreciated it in all the games I played. But that's something for somebody to consider. If you're building your own deck, you may not want to include mulligan and maybe want to have a couple of other allies or something. All right, so with that, let me go ahead and contrast this now with the other deck, right? So like I said, EpicBeowulf's deck, right, isn't broken enough. No, there's always more. And like I said, I'll include the deck so you can read his deck description if you'd like. But all I'm planning on doing is showing you the contrast between the 2 decks. And so you might want to make other decisions similar to what he made or what I made for whatever reason that you might have. All right, so let's go check that other deck out. And I'll just put them side by side so you can see those real easily. All right, so first let me let you get a chance to skim through here and see just how similar the decks are. Right, so first of all, he does have 8 allies instead of my 7, so there's a little bit of contrast. And I have 14 events instead of his 11 events. He does have exactly 40 cards in his deck, and both of us included the 3 mulligans. So you can see that similarity there. He did include a player side scheme build support, which was a tempting thing for me to include too. If I were to do it over again, I actually might remove a mulligan and include a build support. But it's hard to say from one to the other. We have the exact same resource cards. And then if you look at the supports, we both included the Bellerophon and the Pericles. And then where we differed is I had the 3 med teams, and he had instead 3 field agents, which, by the way, I really like the field agents. In my previous Maria Hill build, I actually included 3 field agents instead of the med team. And I explained my personal reasons was I wanted to be able to make sure that Maria Hill stayed just that extra, again, insurance to make sure that I could get, all 3 of these. When I played these resources, I wanted to get all 3. But he included healing factor just like I did, right? So that has the ability to make sure that Maria Hill has that buildup. But plus, he included, with that 1 extra ally that he included, that means that he does have an extra chance to defend Maria Hill. So that helps to make up for that too, right? So why don't I go ahead and point out what field agent is real quickly, right? So it has 3 uses. It's only a cost of 1, so really easy to get in play. This is why I really like these cards as well. And it has a hero interrupt. When a shield ally would take any amount of consequential damage, exhaust field agent, remove 1 backup counter from it, prevent 1 of that damage. So he included a lot of the, mostly the same allies I did. So it has lots of those, including, the most important one, of course, is identity-specific Nick Fury, who's a shield ally. So you really want to keep him out, but you also have the ability to do that with Agent 13. So that card is highly effective at keeping those in play for the rest of the game. So here are the differences on the allies. Okay, so mine are all shield allies except for Professor X. he also included Professor X. And then the other two that are not S.H.I.E.L.D. allies would be Machine Man and Ironheart. So, and Ironheart, of course, after you play Ironheart from your hand, you get to draw a card. So that's a great inclusion. I actually really considered that myself too. I was highly tempted to include Ironheart instead of a Mulligan. And then Machine Man. So one thing I mentioned that I included Mulligans, but no resource sinks. But EpicBeowulf did include some resource sinks, and one of them is Machine Man, right? So Machine Man has this interrupt: when Machine Man attacks or thwarts, spend up to 3 resources of any type. Machine Man gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for this use for each resource spent this way. So Machine Man's great for that, because if you end up with a Mulligan and you plan to use it, then you can use some of your resources to go ahead and power up Machine Man to get that extra attack or thwart, and then use Mulligan, and you haven't played any cards if you just use those resources. And the other resource sink that he included was Tic-Tac-Toe, right? So that's a hero action: spend 1 resource of any type, move 1 damage from a character to an empty space above, matching the spent resource. If there are 3 damage tokens in a line, deal all damage on this card to an enemy and discard this card. So what this allows you to do, of course, is to not only help keep your allies in play, but you could actually use that to also help get Maria Hill's life back up to possibly full life. And then that way, you can keep using self-confidence, self-control, and self-preservation for their full value resource-wise. Okay. All right. So other contrasts here, right? I already mentioned the difference in the events. So notice the only extra events that he included were the Mulligans. I did include the Super Spies. I forgot to mention that. So for me, I absolutely love Super Spies. So I try to include that in all of my Maria Hill decks. I'm probably going to include it all the time. I find it highly valuable, but for EpicBeowulf, obviously felt that that wasn't necessary in this deck. And with getting the field agents out so cheaply, I can see why that would be. Because the field agent, that was what I found highly valuable about using the field agents, because you can get them into play so easily. You end up with these backup counters, and then you can use Maria Hill's hero ability, which I actually forgot to go over, right? So it has the S.H.I.E.L.D. and Spy traits: 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense, 9 hit points, hand size of 5. Each ally you control gains the S.H.I.E.L.D. trait, right? So even though some of these are not S.H.I.E.L.D. traded, when you're on Maria Hill's hero side, they are S.H.I.E.L.D. traded. And so then if we look at her ability, her reassignment ability, it's an action: move 1 all-purpose counter from a S.H.I.E.L.D. support to another S.H.I.E.L.D. support. That's part of why I really love Field Agent so much. So like I said, I think Field Agent is a great card, and I had my own reasons for including Med Team instead. But like I said, but Field Agent is really great for getting out there cheaply and be able to use this reassignment ability and be able to make sure you keep plenty of your counters on your S.H.I.E.L.D. supports here. Okay. The other difference here is he included Government Liaison, hero action: exhaust Government Liaison, play a S.H.I.E.L.D. card from your hand, reducing its resource cost by 1. So that can get you the vast majority of your cards into play. It can help you get a whole bunch of your cards into play, so you can get a whole bunch of your allies into play and all those S.H.I.E.L.D. supports into play using that. So highly valuable for that. So a great card. I actually chose to use Government Liaison in my previous build as well. Okay, but in this case, I chose Helicarrier because I was getting this 3 value. I figured it could be convenient to get Helicarrier out instead. So that's where I made that different choice, right? So so in any case, those are the 2 different builds. I will include the links to both of these, and I'm looking forward to seeing any comments people have to say. Love having conversations there. Please like and subscribe if you appreciate this type of content. All right. Have a great one, everybody.